most important messages here, I think, to talk about today. And I'll start off with this, I think some encouraging news for many, not everyone, but we are looking at probably the best chances for rainfall and significant rainfall that we've had in several weeks. And it may be more than that. This is a forecast graphic here of totals over the next week. Bottom line is we've got two significant chances for rain, one here overnight tonight or later today and into tomorrow, and then another one at the beginning of next week or late night Sunday, Monday. And I'll talk about those in just a second. Looking, though, at the week in review, back to sort of the reality for many, and that is we've been in, as Kim introduced, we've been in a drought situation in many parts of the state for some time. The week, in terms of average temperatures, averaged out once again much warmer than normal, generally 6 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Not quite as warm as what we saw the previous week, but it was still enough to tack on at least 100 base 50 degree day units. That's what you see here on the left. These are the actual totals to the end of the 15th. And more importantly here, if we look at this relative to normal, we are now significantly ahead. If you did some of the math here and looked at the degree day total normals for the days, most areas are at least a calendar week ahead of normal based on degree day accumulation now just for the end of the middle of June. So with the warmer weather of the last few weeks, we've really moved or accelerated ahead. Remember that we started off cool and we were actually a little bit behind, but we have more than made up those deficits and now are ahead in virtually all of the state and actually all of the region across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. For many, more importantly, if we look at the precipitation here over the last week, it depended on where you were. And some folks were, some areas, locations were very, very fortunate and picked up. The yellow here is 2 inches or greater. You can see, once again, this has been a theme for much of the season. The best coverage spatially and best amounts were across far northern parts of the state in upper Michigan, but we also had some significant rainfall here in central lower Michigan. Much less, though, as you move toward the lakeshore areas. And if you think about the last week, we had a number of days where we had the formation of afternoon and evening thunderstorms. And by nature, those are widely scattered, and not everybody gets the same amounts. And we saw an incredible variability in precipitation totals. But on the optimistic side, the better side, positive side, some areas did pick up significant rain. Again, just not enough. And that's of course the theme of what we're looking at here. These are two totals just to give you some historical perspective, looking at the percent of normal precipitation back to the middle of April. And you can see that, well, there are a lot of tans and browns here that reflect in long-term deficits of rainfall. Most of the state less than 80%. There are some exceptions to that in a few spots up in the UP and the interior northern lower, but the area of greatest concern probably is much of southern and portions of central lower Michigan here, especially from southwest northeastward up towards Saginaw and into the Thumb, where 25 to 50% of normal rainfall has been common. Remember, this comes on the heels of more deficits as you go back further than that into the winter and even into last fall. But these are just more recent deficits over the last couple of months. And for most areas, that translates to somewhere between a 2 to 4 inch deficit of precipitation, which is a lot. That's again, 3 inches would be a month's worth climatologically of rainfall. So you can see we're behind, certainly behind where we should be for this time of the year. And as Kim introduced, things have unfortunately have deteriorated across much of certainly from the northern Great Plains eastward into the upper Midwest, Great Lakes region. And the big change in the most current version of the drought monitor was the expansion of our D2 or severe drought across, and it started in southwestern lower Michigan, at least at D2, and the last week's issuance spread that northeastward up towards, just like you just saw in that 60-day precipitation deficit, up through central lower towards Saginaw Valley and into the Thumb. There's also another area that's also developed here in D2 up in northwestern lower portions of Manistee, Benzie, Grand Traverse in that northwestern lower Michigan part. So that's where at least we have probably the most significant impacts or influence so far. Remember too that a lot of the impacts are very, very strongly dependent upon soil types. And so we have obviously the greatest impacts from this dryness are on our coarse textured soils, which just have less water holding capabilities and significantly, well, it's not nearly as bad on our fine textured soils, which do hold more water. So a lot of that depends again on location. Well, let's look at where we're headed here. I mentioned two big weather systems. The first one is getting close. That is in the form here of an area of low pressure. It's actually an upper wave or disturbance that's driving this with a frontal boundary, and that is going to cause some showers and thunderstorms to gradually spread from far western upper Michigan southeastward through the state here tonight and then into tomorrow. And there probably will be two chances or two major threats of rain with this. One with the initial surge of warm air up ahead of this frontal boundary. That's some of what you see here in the weather map. Here's the latest radar. You can see that it doesn't look very impressive yet. But later on this afternoon, I think you'll see the development, or is expected to see rapid development of showers and thunderstorms here in areas to our west, eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and then those will move eastward into Michigan in the overnight hours. Again, that's the first wave of this particular system. A second one will come tomorrow as this frontal boundary approaches and actually associated with the frontal passage itself. And I think this one will be better in far eastern portions of the state, especially by the middle of the day, maybe early afternoon. We could see another round of thunderstorms develop. But collectively between these two particular chances, we're probably looking at fairly numerous quarter to half inch totals here. So it's certainly not the end all, but it's a start. And the other issue is it looks like the aerial coverage will be better with this event than it has been over the last few weeks. So the next 24 hours to 36 hours, again, cross fingers, or we're looking relatively hopeful. After that front moves through later on tomorrow and into Saturday, we turn a little cooler, not a whole lot, and drier for the weekend. But one thing I should also mention about here the next 2 days, it's going to be significantly warmer today than it has been. We've been under northerly or northwesterly flow aloft and very, very pleasant conditions here. Today will be noticeably warmer and actually significantly windier as the high pressure, which has led to this cool, dry weather, moves off to the east, and we get the return flow around that. That's going to set the stage today, along with low humidities, for fairly high fire risk. So something to think about. You definitely don't want to be dealing with that here today. It will not be very, very almost dangerous conditions in many parts of the state with warm, windy, and dry conditions here before that threat of rainfall arrives here later tonight. But into the weekend, it's looking here for a Father's Day weekend. Really, in most areas, a beautiful and seasonable temperatures. Highs probably in the low 80s or so, and lows in the 50s over most of the state. So, but mostly fair and dry conditions are expected. Then late on Sunday into Monday, and you can see that here on the weather map, it's still off here out in the northern Rockies. That's the next weather system. That one actually looks even more promising in terms there will be Gulf of Mexico moisture with it, fairly strong dynamics with this. That one expecting even a little bit more in the way of rainfall late Sunday into Monday. And so we're all back to that graphic here. We're looking at 3/4 to, in some cases, 1.5 inches of possible precipitation here over the next several days out of those two events. That's the most we've seen in a long time. Here's some colors on this map that we have not seen in Michigan for some time, but that right now is the current thinking, and hopefully it's not going to end, of course, these abnormally dry conditions, but it should help a great deal. And more importantly, the aerial coverage, again, I think should be better with these two events than what we've seen. Now, after that event on Monday, we turn cooler and drier for most of the remainder of the week. The next chance for rainfall after Monday probably coming late in the work week, but it looks a little bit better in terms of frequency of systems through the upper Midwest here as we look into the next 1 or 2 weeks. Potential evapotranspiration rates, even though we are expecting gradually cooler conditions by next week, because we're solstice is coming up, midsummer day, longest day, strongest solar radiation. with relatively low humidities and strong sunshine, even with the lower temperatures, we're expecting above normal PET rates from about 0.18 inches or 0.17 in the north to 21 or 22 hundredths per day on average here in the south. And again, those are fairly healthy. That's the atmospheric demand from that reference grass covered canopy. But again, atmospheric demand will be above normal. I think that's the bottom line. And then looking beyond that, I mentioned a bit of a change next week. If you look at the jet stream pattern here, you can see big troughing over the Great Lakes region. That's a little bit unexpected from what we have seen over the last couple of weeks looking at the upper air, but it does indicate that at least a temporary change towards cooler temperatures. That's what you see in the upper right-hand side here. Fairly strong confidence with that, especially next week and probably for the week after that. But also note that precipitation totals are forecast more in the normal to above normal category. So again, more frequent chances for precip than we've had. The other question with this, how long might this change last? Well, the evidence we have right now is that this will be temporary, and then maybe by the end of the month or early July, we move back into a warmer than normal pattern. No real direction in terms of precipitation, but it does suggest that we will begin to warm up or go back to above normal here at some point by early July. And so I'll wrap up with that. Again, fingers crossed. We have two good chances here for precipitation. Hopefully, especially those that have been missed by the recent rainfall here, will pick up here rain over the next several days, and then move into a little bit of a cooler and maybe a little wetter than normal pattern here by next week into the following weekend. And with that, again, I'll wrap up here and introduce next week's virtual breakfast speaker. Dr. Jamie Wilbur will be with us, and her topic next week is going to be Cercospora leaf spot outlook for sugar beets. So don't miss that. Again, that's 1 week from today on the 24th. And Jim, I'll turn it back to you.